What is up, everybody? Welcome to the True Form podcast. On today's episode, we have Matt, the coach, the PT, the legend, in for a chat. Now, I've been doing this PT thing for this health and fitness thing for over a decade now, and I don't get too many coaches that absolutely blow my mind with the information, the knowledge they have, but how they can convey that into the general public. Just easy way to understand, easy usable things that you can do to absolutely change your life, start smashing it in the gym and get real results. And Matt is one of those people. Every time we've had a chat in the past, I've just finished the conversation with, damn it, I wish I had recorded that for the podcast. And I did. I got him in for this podcast. We recorded it and it was absolutely amazing. I know you're going to absolutely love this episode. There's so much to get out of this. So big thanks to Matt for coming on the pod. This is Matt's first go. You wouldn't be able to tell. First go at a podcast, I should say. You wouldn't be able to tell. He absolutely smashed it. Again, there's so much knowledge that you're going to get out of this. So please follow the show links, the link in the show notes. Follow Matt on social media or jump on YouTube and just drop a comment thanking Matt for coming on the show. I really want him to come on for the second time, and he probably will if all you guys show your love as well. So I'll stop talking. Let's get into today's episode. Matt, thanks for coming on the pod.
No worries, mate. No worries. Pleasure to be here.
We've had a few good chats, so I'm very excited that we actually get to record this one for all the listeners absolutely. And viewers. So there was a few places I wanted to start, but there's one thing I wanted to get because of your performance background. I think you're going to have a really good answer, and I'm excited to hear your answer.
Yeah.
What do you think the difference between motivation and discipline is?
Oh, that's a great question to lead into. For me, from a performance background, I understand when people talk about motivation, and motivation is there, but to me, I always like to lean towards that motivation is a myth. I like to lean down that side of things because discipline will triumph over motivation. So discipline is always going to be there. If you're disciplined, then you won't need to be motivated. And I kind of use analogies with my clients around like different training protocols and just around just general living. So, and the way I kind of back that up around like the motivation is a myth is that if we fulfill our lives with things that we enjoy doing, then we don't really need to be motivated to do it. So, for example, if someone said to me, "Hey, Matt, I want you to do 45 minutes of HIIT training," I don't really enjoy HIIT training a hell of a lot. That's just my personal preference. But if someone said to me, "Hey, Matt, I need you to walk around the block listening to a Joe Rogan podcast," I don't need to be motivated to do that. You could ask me 3 years from now, I'll still be doing the same thing. Whereas with 45 minutes of HIIT training and you want me to do that for three years nonstop, that ain't going to happen. And that's where I believe motivation is a myth, because it's something that I don't enjoy. So I really have to hype myself up to get into that. Whereas if we're filling our lives with things that we enjoy and trainings that we enjoy doing, motivation doesn't really come into that at all. It just becomes about discipline. And there's going to be days where you don't want to train. But that's, I suppose, if you enjoy the process or where you want to end up, discipline takes precedence, really.
Yeah, I actually agree. Motivation is a buzzword, I feel like, and it's just...
Yeah, that's probably a good way of looking at it as a buzzword. And an excuse. Oh, I'm not motivated. I get it a lot with clients. Oh, I'm not motivated to do it. It's like, well, you're not. It's not that you're not motivated, because if you weren't motivated, you wouldn't be here. It's just that you haven't found your area of training that you enjoy doing. You haven't found an avenue of training that works for you or fits with your lifestyle or fits into your life puzzle.
Yeah, that's a good point. So how would you go about finding that place for somebody, like that journey for them?
I think
there's always there's always going to be that thing that they don't want to do that they should be doing. And how do you
Yes.
navigate that?
Um, Good question. I find that as adults, we tend to hold on to, we still have child traits, right? So um, if you're a child and you don't like something, what do your parents do? Like, say you don't like eating vegetables, what do your parents do? They disguise it. Same kind of thing. You can kind of use that, use that in terms of, I do that with my clients. Is like, if you can, I have clients that are like, oh, I don't want to do this, it's boring, or oh, like, I hate this. But if you can kind of find a way, I try and find a way to break down some barriers. So things that they like doing, you know, whether that's a sport or something that they enjoy doing externally outside of the gym. That could be any kind of recreational activity, but just finding a way to disguise their exercise, like disguise that kind of training or incorporate something in it. Like for example, like I have no background in ballroom dancing whatsoever, but they want to, they want to do some resistance training, but they love ballroom dancing. So it's like, cool. All I get them to do is I just get a loaded vest, and I don't really normally use an agility ladder because I don't really like using them, but just get an agility ladder out, weighted vest, and he just moves through the agility ladder like some dance footwork through the
Yeah, right.
agility. Um, as a little bit of a side, like a superset to something. So it might be like, okay, cool, we're going to do like a loaded carry with the weighted vest on and, two dumbbells or kettlebells, come back, 10-15 second rest. Now go through your dance footwork pattern with your loaded vest on. And so it's like they feel like that you're giving something back to them. So
Mm.
it's you become a little bit more I become a little bit more client focused and trying to buy into their day-to-day living rather than just being like, here's a program, do it. Because again, it doesn't always work. And I like to use the analogy of like a recipe, right? So like some people don't like certain foods, some people don't. All recipes come from different cultures and different backgrounds, and that may not suit people's demographic or the area that they live in. It's the same kind of thing. Not every training program is going to suit one person's lifestyle.
Mm. That's a really good lesson to learn, probably for the coaches out there, to be very flexible with your clients. Is that something you just picked up along the way, or is that something that was taught to you in the very beginning?
Um, I think it was probably hinted to me in learning as I went through my journey as a trainer and a coach. It was kind of, you've got to be a little bit more flexible, and it's probably anecdotal, learned as well, like having coaches myself through sports, and having like good coaches that kind of have an interest in terms of like what is happening outside essentially the training block that we're doing, or outside of the four walls of the gym. Like, what are the things that are happening outside of here, because they do have an impact on performance inside the gym. So probably a little bit of both. um, but as my career progressed, I tried to make more of an emphasis on that, because it does have a huge impact, working with athletes and just even in the general population. So that could be, like if you know that they've got two kids and they work full time, and they're carrying a couple of injuries, and they have a high stress job, and they live 40 minutes away from the gym. It's knowing those things, so then you can kind of break down barriers to help and accommodate them. So and obviously they still have goals, so it's like trying to break some of those barriers down for them, because sometimes it requires a fresh perspective of someone looking in to break those barriers down, because a lot of people, they'll just see problems and they create excuses, and those are the reasons. It's easier to make an excuse than to come up with a solution. So I
Mm.
always say to my clients, you give me an excuse, I'll give you a solution. I'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah, love that. Love that. So most of the people listening would just be people trying to, improve their health and wellness. I got asked this question on my previous podcast or a couple of podcasts ago. Like, what are 3 simple things that general public could be focusing on to improve their health and wellness?
Ooh, 3 things. There's so many. Um,
I'll take 5 if you want 5.
yeah, I think for me, trying to keep it plain and simple is, I mean, there's the thing of NEAT, right? Your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is just your day-to-day living, just moving more. Like you can incorporate simple things as such as, I always use this one because it's great. Park your car. If you go in a supermarket, park your car further away. Kill 2 birds, 1 stone. One, you're getting a little bit of a loaded carry on the way back, assuming you don't use the trolley and you take your own bags. 2, you get your step count up. And then 3, no one's going to ding your doors on your car because you parked so far away. There's no cars next to you. So it's a win-win in my opinion. So just doing things like that, not always, and then, not always taking the escalator or the lift, take the stairs. Think just real simple things like that. And I know there's been a big push, like over in New Zealand, there's been a big push for that. And I think there's such a trend with water bottles now. They cost an arm and a leg, but I'm not against it because it's encouraging people to drink water and carry a water bottle around in a weird way. It's like a status thing. People are like, "Oh, I've got this flash drink bottle." Well, you've got one of those. But it's encouraging people to buy drink bottles. And it's encouraging people to drink water, which is, I think, a big thing. For a long time, I was terrible at consuming water. I was more worried about consuming coffee rather than water. But since
Have
that's
you changed that now? Like,
yes,
what's your coffee
yeah.
intake like?
My water intake.
Coffee.
Oh, coffee intake. No, it's still up there. It's still up
Okay.
there. There's a decent amount of water in between now. So yeah, it's normally two or three coffees a day. I try not to have anything after 2. That doesn't always happen, but I try not to.
All right. One more thing that people should focus on.
One more thing, mobility is probably a massive one. Big believer in mobility. There's been a big push for it. And not just from the strength and conditioning lens, it's kind of jumped across into general pop. The mobility's been around for years. It's always been there. It was probably more targeted around like more occupational therapists, around physios and stuff like that. Generally had the key to success around mobility. They kind of used to, not so much gatekeep, but they kind of had that information. And then now it's kind of started to trickle down into that kind of strength and conditioning realm. And then now it's moved into the general population. And I love it. Honestly, since taking on mobility and really making a big push and incorporating that in my own training and clients training, my body feels better at 31 than it did at 21.
What does that look like? What's the mobility in your Yeah. So when you say mobility, what are you talking about?
So, because I can guarantee you there'll be people being, "Oh, what's the difference? Mobility, flexibility, same thing." There's a big difference around mobility and flexibility. They are trying to get like too technical around it and trying to keep it simple. Think about mobility as like joint, as movement at the joint, essentially. So think about like shoulder rotation. This is like good shoulder mobility, and then think about flexibility, like being able to touch your toes, right? That's more flexibility. That's the stretching of the muscle and the tissue. But in saying that, you can improve your flexibility by improving your mobility, in the sense that if you improve your mobility, what supports that joint? Muscle tissue, ligaments, tendons, etc. So if we're restricted through muscle tissue or muscle bound, we start mobilizing, trying to free that area up. As a byproduct, those muscles will relax to some degree and improve flexibility and range of motion within that muscle and allow you to contract and relax a lot more effectively and have better posture, which in turn results in less chance of injury occurring. But yeah, I've just found that um, implementing mobility at the start of my training and clients training, like just starting that, having that at the top, then moving, and this may cause well, not cause, but this might raise a few eyebrows. So I always push people to do mobility first, rather than, so most people are like, sweet, yep, Janice, go jump on the treadmill 5 minutes. Then we'll come in, we'll do some stretching and some mobility, and then get into your workout.
Mm.
I tend to go the other way around. People go,
Yeah, right.
we go, why? I'm like,
Mm.
um, on the, I did a bit of research around it. I went down a massive wormhole and rabbit hole, probably all the tunnels around mobility and reasoning why. And I came to this one article, and it made a lot of sense to me. And I kind of delved into it a little bit more. As if, say you've gone and trained Jack, you've done some training the day before. You train, full body, legs are a little bit sore, upper body's a little bit sore, but you go jump straight on the treadmill. Oh, just jog for 5 minutes. Prior to that, prior to you getting on the treadmill, you'll have some element of tightness and some element of dysfunction due to your training that you've done, and that's just a byproduct of your training. You've created some tension, some damage to muscle tissue, so you're going to have some form of restriction there. So by jumping straight on the treadmill, now you're adding potentially dysfunctional movement patterns, and applying stress to that being on the treadmill. So you're now compounding, impacting those joints, your ankles, your knees, your hips, because they haven't been mobilized, and you're applying stress to that area. So what they're saying is that within the article, that what they're saying is mobilize the area first. That will still stimulate enough blood flow to allow those joints to move safely without causing any damage to the muscle. But you also free up that joint, which then allows that joint to move how it should and optimally. Then you go and do your warm up. Now you're not adding anywhere near you might not completely free it up, but you're now reducing that chance of injury, and you're not adding or compounding stress to a dysfunctional movement pattern or as much as you would as if you were to jump straight on.
That makes, as soon as you said it, it makes perfect sense. And I have been the other way, and I'm definitely going to start incorporating that with my training and clients for
You'll,
sure, because it makes more
you'll,
sense.
you'll find it
Makes
makes
so
a
much more.
huge difference as well.
Yeah.
Like you mobilize more, you like mobilize, and it actually feels nice. You're like, oh, you're just taking things through range, and you don't realize how tight or like how enable or immobile those certain joints are from straight off the bat. And once you hit those kind of main key hotspots of the body, and then you go jump on the treadmill, because I've jumped on the treadmill before and been like gone for a run for 5 minutes. My back's sore and my hips hurt. I'm like, why? Like, I haven't done anything. It's because I haven't done anything. That's why
Yeah.
it's sore. So once I started doing that, like straight away, like I never had any kind of back pain or hip or knee pain when I went to jump on the treadmill to do my little pulse raiser or my little 5 minute warm up to get the blood pumping or getting the heart moving.
So we've just been throwing mobilize around like everybody knows what it means. For those that aren't sure what it means, can you give like a visual, like what exercises, what are you doing, all that sort of stuff?
Yep. So if I try and take you through, I suppose, a visual, probably the first point of call is you think of the body as a chain, right? If we start at our feet, each joint in the body is linked in some way, and each joint has a role. It's either stability or mobility. So if we start with our feet, for example, we want our feet to be stable, obviously. And then our ankles, we want to be mobile. So ankle mobility is being able to get your knee over your toe, being able to lengthen plantar and dorsiflex the foot, inversion, eversion. So having, full range with that ankle. And that's obviously going to help with performance, with squats, in lunges, etc. Then you also, if you move up the chain, you've got the knee. Knee, we want to be stable. So you start seeing a pattern: stable, stability, mobility, stability. Then you've got hips. You want to be mobile. Um, there's so many exercises. So with the stability joints, you don't really need to mobilize them a hell of a lot because their primary focus is to stay still or stabilize you. It's the mobilizing joints that you want to target. So your ankles, your hips, your thoracic spine, shoulders. Those are the main key hotspots you want to target. So like hips, I take people through. I find 90-90s are a great one. That's just sitting on the floor, bending the knee at 90 degrees, and just rotating and rocking the knees over. You can use your hands to start with, because you'll find you'll get a lot of tightness in the around the glute med or the top of the hip. But your hips are probably one of the most tolerable joints. They want to move. They want to move. And you spend 5 or 10 minutes just doing 90-90s, you'll find that you're like, wow, this is a lot easier. This is a lot easier than when I started. There's heaps of other frog stretch or frog rocks, rocking back and forward, holding deep squats. You can go through hip cars. You can, sit leg straight, lifting hip up, getting that leg up and over like a dumbbell or a foam roller. You've got hip aeroplanes, which is essentially like taking a leg out into an RDL, holding onto a stick or framework, internally and externally rotating through the hip joint. Those are great. You can do them without, if you've got the stability, you can do them out without support. And that's real good control if you can manage to do that. And then thoracic spine, that's probably the biggest one that I've noticed, is that we suck. As humans, we suck with thoracic mobility. We have none of it. So many. Because we're so anteriorly focused with everything that we do, driving, sitting, texting, keyboard, everything is in front of us. And so we end up in this rounded position, lengthened through the posterior chain. And so we don't have any kind of range because we're so lengthened and so bound forward. And that generally shoulders end up being shot too from that. So I like to put, as a great test, is a thoracic extension over a roller, which is just lying on your back, get a roller, put it around the base of your shoulder blades or your scaps, find the bottom part of your scaps, pull your heels as close as you can to your glutes, take a deep breath in, fill the lungs up as much as you can, fingertips to the ceiling, and then you just extend backwards over the roller. So you're just keeping those hips down, try not to let the hips come off the floor, and you just extend over the roller. Someone with good thoracic mobility, they should be able to get the back of their head and the back of their palms on the carpet or on the floor.
Right. Okay. Something to
A little
practice for me.
challenge for the viewers out there. Go find a foam roller and lie on that and see how far you can. And so many people they get here and they go, they struggle to breathe. They're like, I can't go any further. And I'll do it, and they're like, you can't do that. There's no way. Like, that's not human. And I'm like, watch, and just go straight over, and they go, that's not normal. I was like, no, that's normal.
That is normal.
That's where you should be. So just thoracic mobility, and there's heaps of other ones that you can do, like a scorpion stretch, which is really good because that opens up the shoulder joint, takes the shoulder joint through a little bit of a stretch, but also gets the upper back and the lower back kind of moving as well.
While you're talking about it, foam rolling, like lacrosse balls, all that sort of stuff, how do you, where do they fit in? Do you use them? Are they useful?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of research around, and there's a lot of conflicting research that does nothing. Personally, because there's so many conflicting research articles, it's kind of hard to kind of figure out if it's any benefit or not. I think it comes down to a little bit of personal preference. I don't think it's not damaging us in any way. For me, as a coach, I don't think it's hindering any kind of performance in any way. So for me, to general pop athletes, if you enjoy foam rolling and it feels good, do it.
Mm.
And if you feel like it does nothing for you and people are, and you don't want to do it, don't do it. Like, do what feels good for you. When it comes to foam rolling and lacrosse balls, I feel like lacrosse balls are probably good. And those like trigger point balls, I love those because you can
Same.
if you've got like a tight spot, like I always get one in between my shoulder blades, and I'm always like, oh, sore there, and I just get on one of those balls and then just lie on that, and that tends to release it. Same with Shakti mats, same, very much similar,
Mm.
very similar. I don't know how people sleep on those things though. I have people
Just
go,
explain what they are for.
oh, Shakti mat is just like a foam mat with just a whole lot of spikes, little circles, and they're just got little spikes, and they're on a, like it's almost like a pillow like this, and it's
Mm.
just all spikes. Um, horrible
How
looking.
often? How often are you on that? I used to use them all the time, but I need to
I
get
haven't
back on
really,
there.
I haven't really used one in a wee while.
Yeah.
I used to use it on my feet because I used to have
Mm.
real bad uh, from my sport and just being in so many different types of footwear, like with cricket and weightlifting and CrossFit, and so I'm going from flat soled shoes to high arch shoes and impact. My feet used to just get hammered, um, and I used to use I used to get kind of bad plantar fasciitis, and I used to just stand on that for 20, 30 minutes. I could stand
Mm.
there and I could just feel my foot release. And that took away a lot of my Achilles issues and my calf pain, just because that fascia is connected to that Achilles and that calf and soleus part of the leg. So I found that helped me massively. And same with that little lacrosse ball, grabbing that and then just rolling my foot out on the lacrosse ball was a big help for my feet. Anyways, that's probably another thing I would say to people is don't underrate your feet. Like, I mean, there's people taking
100%.
photos of them now and
Yeah, you
making
can
money
make a
off
lot of money.
make a lot of money off it. But I'm not saying do that. But there was a company that I did a little course with. They're called the Foot Collective.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, real good
Mm.
course. I did that. I learned a lot around like mechanics of the foot, and how that has such an impact on performance and balance. And yeah, because I always had a problem with my feet, and ever since I started sending them a little bit of love, not in that way, but um, just rolling them out and
The OnlyFans link will
being
be in the comments. Are you a fan of the barefoot shoes and all that sort of stuff?
I haven't, if I'm being honest, I haven't done any work in the barefoot shoes or anything like that. I did a period of like just running on the grass, just um barefoot. I love that. Like I love playing sport or running on grass barefoot or being on the beach and stuff like that. You can just feel your feet work that a little bit better. Um, it feels a lot, yeah, like I suppose it should do. Feels a lot more
Yeah.
natural.
Yeah.
Uh, but I did toe spreaders for a while.
Mm.
I found that my right foot I can no, my left foot I can spread my toes on my left foot because I'm left leg dominant. But on my right side I've got nothing.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
right side I can't do anything. Like it's almost like looks paralyzed. Like move, like they're like spread your toes. I'm like I'm trying, and they're like
Yeah.
nothing's moving.
Yeah.
So yeah, along that, and I did the big toe down,
Mm.
press the toes up, and switch them around. I used to just do that in the shower,
Mm.
or when I'm cooking dinner or something like that. I found that it was like a real good way to start incorporating some of that footwork training, but super underutilized for performance.
Yeah. 100% agree. And I am a big fan of the barefoot shoes. I used to
Yeah,
have Achilles problem. Like I could just not like my Achilles was tight all the time. Like I'd go to bed with tight feet, tight Achilles, like in pain. Started
yeah.
wearing the barefoot shoes within a week. All the pain, all the tightness is gone.
I think it's just the look of them. I just
Oh
couldn't.
yeah, I have to admit, like they're not the. You're definitely not going to get any OnlyFans with those.
Hey, there's a market for everything. There's a
Yeah,
market
that's
for
true.
everything.
That's true. All right. I want to just back into the mobilizing and warming up and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Pain. Pain is a big thing. Like
Mhm.
some, again, this is very different for everybody. Like mobilizing for people is going to be looking different for everybody.
Yeah.
But pain is like, somebody might be mobilizing and then they got pain in their hip, so they just leave it alone and they won't work out or something like that. So, like, explain what people should, when warming up, they got those niggles and pains and that sort of stuff. What should they be, thinking about, and how should they approach that pain into the workout?
I think if it's like a pre-existing injury, and you've been obviously been given all clear from your physio, GP, doctor, etc., and you're getting some form of pain or discomfort, whether that's due to restriction and a mobility issue, or that could be a deeper issue in terms of um, that could be a physiological issue. That could be, like if you've done some cartilage damage or something like that. But if it's none of that and it's just kind of discomfort, it's just monitoring for me. Especially, I always say to people, if I'm giving someone a mobility program that hasn't done any kind of mobility before and they've had previous injuries and they've got some restriction within movement, um, normally I'd put someone through a screening, just like a movement screening process, seeing where they're tight, where their restriction is, and then moving into some mobility to kind of target some of those key areas. And managing the pain side of things, I just use very similar to like an RPE scale, like 1 to 10. Um, Anything that kind of starts getting towards that kind of 6, 7 pain scale, I'll tend to pull back. If they're like, oh yeah, it's about a 7 out of 10 pain wise, I'm like, okay, cool. Let's just dial this back. Maybe let's try and figure out why, what kind of pain. I'll ask, is it a dull ache? Is it sharp? So asking those kind of questions, because they can be quite big indicators in terms of what kind of issue could be happening. Generally, if it's like, sharp and pulsating or radiating, there's suggests potentially nerve problem. If it's just kind of like a bit of a dull ache or just uncomfortability, then that's probably just a bit of restriction happening through there, and some tightness that we can look at trying to alleviate through that mobility. Um, Again, I'll just, even if if say the pain gets up there, say to a 6, I'm like, okay, cool, let's leave that. We'll move on to something else, do a different mobility exercise, and then just circle back to it and be like,
Mm.
okay, now how's it feeling? Because sometimes that pain can be referred. So that pain could be happening, lower back, and doing a mobility drill. They're like, oh, getting some pain in my lower back doing this. You're like, okay, cool, sweet. We'll stop doing this exercise, take them through some thoracic extension, um, and um, thoracic extension and some thoracic flexion as well. And you might find that they come back to doing that hip exercise again, and they're like, "Oh, actually, that pain's gone now."
Mm.
So not necessarily the where that joint is moving, it isn't necessarily where that pain is occurring. Doesn't necessarily mean that that movement is the problem or that joint is the problem. That's the tough part of the body. It's a little bit of process of elimination, and that's where we suppose if we go back right back to where we started at the start of this podcast, is talking about understanding what Janice's day-to-day life is externally. Um, I mean, I could use an example. I had a client who suffered from frozen shoulder and shoulder problems and stuff like that. And it took a little while for me to kind of get there, but it's like, oh, so it's kind of physio, getting, acupuncture, all that, cortisone injection, blah, 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 did nothing.
Mm.
I was
Mm.
like, what am I missing? And I'm like,
Mm.
heaps of scap retraction. And I was like, what am I missing? Like, there's a missing link here that I'm not getting. The heaps of scap retraction, opening up, stretching, mobilizing the joint. And I was like, this. She's like, no, I'm still getting pain. I was like, what do you do for work? And she's like, well, I already knew what she did for work. And I was like, how often are you at the computer? She's like, oh, like 90% of the day. I was like, okay. I was like, you standing? And she's like, yeah. I was like, do you lean forward? And she's like, yeah, a little bit. I was like, what hand's your mouse in? She goes, my right hand. And I was like, right, what I
Mm.
want you to do tomorrow is I want you to put your mouse in your left hand. Yeah, she's going to be a little bit slow at work. Just let your client or let your work colleagues know. Put your mouse in your left hand, and then come see me after your session because you just worked across the road. I was like,
Mm.
oh, let's come see me after you finish work, and then tell me how that went. She's like, oh, my job feels fine, no problem. I was like, no
Yeah.
problem. And I was like, cool. So I said, she's like, yeah, but I got bugger all work done. And I was like, cool. How about I was like, well, when's the busiest part of your day? She goes, morning. I was like, cool. Use your right hand for the mouse in the morning. Afternoon's cruisy, switch it to the left hand. And she's like, okay, I can do that. So she did that. She's been doing that for the last, I don't know, 2-3 months. No shoulder pain.
Mm. That's awesome.
It's just like, there's always something. There's always something that, that you can find that helps manage that pain. So it's not always you can have all the answers in terms of exercises, mobility drills, but sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's the smallest little thing, and if you can
Yeah.
understand your clients, it helps.
100%. And that's the thing, like workouts are usually what, 60 minutes, 45 minutes of the day. What are you doing for the rest of the day?
Yeah.
And that adds up like massively. If you've got that mouse in your hand for 8 hours, that's
Mm-hmm.
way more than 40-minute
Oh, yeah,
workout.
and it's repetitive, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's like I
Um,
always say to people that 30 minutes a day of like training is 2% of your day.
mm. So what can people do to get the most out of that 2%? Like how should people be approaching their workouts? Like, you know, what should they be thinking about? All that sort of stuff.
So yeah. So again, tough to like kind of just nail one point,
Mm.
uh, just because everybody is different. So I don't
Maybe
like,
mindset rather than like actual things. Like how should
yeah,
people be thinking about getting the most out of that session?
yeah. I think again, working with a trainer is a great place to start, or a good trainer who has an understanding of like and will listen to like what you enjoy doing. I think that's massive. If you can find someone who's like willing to listen to a trainer who's willing to, you know, help you in that way, and will take on board what you enjoy doing and what you enjoy training, that's number one for me. Because then that 30 minutes is going to be pretty easy. Well, not easy, but you're going to enjoy it more than doing something you don't like. Um, I, I, if we're looking at like a training principle, I like full body, like for anybody, um, whether that's athlete or whether that's high performance within reason. But for general pop, a full body, like that would be my biggest nugget of gold is full body. And that
100%.
people go, why? I'm like, but I want to just do this day. And I can understand like the
Mm.
mental side of things, because people can go, because the way the human body is we like putting or brain, we like putting things in boxes. We go Monday's chest and back, and or chest and tries, and then Tuesday is back and biceps. We like categorizing things because it's simple. We like that. I always think of like when you do that, I always just have that visual representation of like a 80-year-old with those pills on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Yeah.
little blister packs.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's like how people they do that with their training. Um, and I understand why people do that because of the simplicity of it. But is it the most effective way? I don't think so. Um, I like full body because you're going to get a lot more out of it, in a shorter period of time. You're targeting, um, you're targeting the whole body. You're getting again, it's so hard because it's relative to your goals, but um, you're going to get a more well-rounded workout. You're not neglecting really anything. I always program it in a way that if you want to focus with your full body workout, pick a compound movement. Make a compound your focus. So Monday might be squat. Tuesday might be bench press. Wednesday might be barbell bent over row. Thursday might be deadlift, etc., and so forth. That gives people that rather than muscle group in their little blister packs, put your compound movement in that blister pack, and then just have everything else as kind of like accessory. I feel like you can get a lot more, accomplish a lot more in a week, in terms of like muscle group and training output that way than you would if you were just keeping it narrow.
Mm. You've said in the past conversations we've had about training like an athlete.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
training like an athlete. Not saying that I am one. I'm a washed up athlete. But I like giving like general pop. I like training them like athletes. And I've had people question me on this a few times, but they go, why? Why not? Why wouldn't you want that athletic capability? Or to some degree, like, why wouldn't you want that ability to, pump out some pull-ups? Like, why wouldn't you want that capability? Why limit yourself to one? I never really understood why people go, oh, like, I don't want to train like an athlete. Well, why not? Like, why don't you want to train like an athlete? Is it because it's too hard? Or is it because you believe you're not an athlete? Who said that you had to be an athlete to train like one? Like, that's like saying, I don't even know. Like, I can't even think of an analogy on the spot, but
No. But everybody should be able to jump, run, like
absolutely,
move,
jump,
get
run.
up off the ground.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah, and I that's how I'll structure my training with general population of like training like an athlete. And people go kind of like with that because they're like, oh, Matt's going to give me my first program. I've never walked in the gym before. They're expecting they're going to get like snatch or clean and jerk as their first lot of movement. No. It's regressions of that. So it's like, say, for example, we'll just keep using Janice. I don't know her, Janice, but we'll just roll with it.
Yeah.
So Janice comes in, she's never walked into the gym before. She knows of movement, she's aware of it. But instead of giving her, an athletic movement such as like a clean and jerk with a barbell or a snatch with a barbell and something that's super high complex. Janice, here's a 3 kilo dumbbell. We're just gonna go from the knee and we're just gonna send it straight up towards the roof. And I don't complicate it with giving it terminology straight off the bat. I just go, okay, Janice, I just want you to hold the dumbbell hang it by your knee in the middle, and I just want you to pull it up and just turn it straight out towards the roof. Oh, yeah, I can do that. That's easy.
Yeah.
And I was like, and you just keep progressing that, and you go, oh, cool. At the end of that, like 3 or 4 sets of 10, 12, whatever, you go, great, Janice, you just did some single arm dumbbell snatches. Oh. Yeah. And they go, oh, they're like, and then if they know that, then they go, oh, that's like a snatch, like the barbell snatch you see in the Olympics. Oh, I didn't know I was capable of it. Just, just a lot of people put barriers of or limitations of what they think they can manage to do versus what they can actually do. And I mean, I'm still trying to find a better term than going, I want to train you like an athlete, because I know that scares a lot of people.
Yeah.
I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm sure I'll come up with something. At this point, I just keep, I suppose, tricking people into training like an athlete.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've got a program attached to all the online things I do. Like people can just jump in and do it. And for a while there, I was calling it the athlete program because it has everything in it.
Yeah.
And I feel like it does turn a lot of people off because they're like, oh, it's going to be so hard and this and that. But
I'm
it's
not an
like
athlete.
same thing. Like you just start simple and work your way up.
I think the word athlete throws a lot of people. They go, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm an athlete. Oh, I'm not doing that."
Yeah.
So I need to create a term. It's like I don't know, average Joe athlete or something like that.
Well,
The
when you
Joe.
think of it, send it my way because I'm going to use it as well.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I haven't come up with a name yet, but like training it like an athlete just um it allows, again, like from my perspective, from a coach's coaching perspective, I can monitor their training loads a lot better. Like I can um I'm keeping record of their numbers, their percentages, their RPEs. It makes it so much easier to track an individual's progress from that side of things. And then just movement quality. Um, it's just their movement quality comes on leaps and bounds training like an athlete, because there's so many more complex movements that they're doing, which the brain loves. Like, people go, "Oh, guys can't multitask." I'm like, well, we can. We can sit there, watch TV, eat and drink a beer at the same time. So we can. We're capable of doing that. And that's kind of like, there is a place for isolation within certain sports. And I know, like, I've coached rugby players and stuff before. Again, a little bit of give and take. Like, they get all these complex movements and compound movements, and they're like, "Oh, so hard," or blah blah blah. So athlete orientated or athletic performance orientated. You give a dog a bone, throw some bicep curls in there, they will love it. Doesn't
Mm.
necessarily have the most athletic transfer for their performance, but they enjoy doing it. So I think every now and then you can chuck a little bit of isolation in there with some of the athletic work, just if someone enjoys it. Again, it goes back to that enjoyment thing that we talked
Hide,
about at the start.
hiding the veggies.
Yeah, hiding the bit, exactly.
I love that analogy. I'm going to use that so many
Maybe,
times.
maybe that's what we call it, hiding the veggies program.
Do you just want to go over RPE for those
Yeah,
listening? A lot
cool.
of coaches throw that word around, but don't really explain how to actually think about it and what it's useful for and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, there's a few different RPE scales. There's a Borg scale, which I think starts at 6 and goes all the way up to, I think, 22, 24, something like that. That's generally used for more measuring. I mean, you can use it in resistance, but it's generally used a little bit more in the cardio realms, because it gives you a rough indication of where their heart rate's sitting. So if someone says, if it's a 6 to, we'll say like a 5 to, the Borg scale is like 5 to 22. Someone goes to me, "Oh, I'm sitting at 10." Roughly, if you looked at if their heart rate had a heart rate monitor on, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm operating at 10." Generally, within a few numbers, their heart rate should be around 100. And
Mm.
so if they're like, "Oh, this is easy. It's sitting at a six, this RP 6, heart rate will roughly be around 60." So it's a little kind of like almost like a cheat sheet, just to kind of see where they're at in terms of how their heart rate is and how they're feeling. Used in a lot of testing. I tend to not use that one a hell of a lot. I don't have a lot of cardio based clients. Um, I use generally just 1 to 10. So just kind of like a hospital pain scale, 1 being rest, 10 being max effort. Um, and then, so max effort would be, I always say, if your life depended on it, you physically could not do another rep, even if you tried. So
Mm.
to failure would be RPE 10. And then I kind of work back from there. RPE is great. So if I've got a new client, so say, Jack, you're my client. I don't know what you lift. You might have come into the gym before. You might be an experienced trainer or unexperienced or just a weekend warrior, but I don't know what you lift. I don't know what your capabilities are. Um, and if I'm prescribing you a program, then I'd be like, cool, I want you to work. I might be like, cool, you bench press. We want to focus on strength. Cool, bench press 5x5. Work up to your top set. So your last set, I want your last set to be an RP of 9. Start your first set at an RP of 6 and work up to an RP of 9. So in your last set, in that 5th rep of your last, or within that last 2 to 3 reps of your last set, you should finish that set and be like, if you really had to, and your life depended on it, you could squeeze out one more rep at an absolute max push, and that would get you to an RP of 10. So if you couldn't say that you probably could get 3 more, then you weren't at an RP of 9, you were working at an RP of 7. The beauty with RPE is that it gives us a starting point, so you can kind of measure your progress, and figuring out what your percentages are based off that. But it's also very good for longevity in training. I use it a lot. I use it with all my clients, and athletes and stuff, but I find it's very, very helpful, for female athletes, just based on the fact that female athletes have such a hormonal fluctuation from day to day, week to week, month to month, that they're not always not, and the same with blokes, not every day is going to be your best. Same with athletes, you see, athletes one day, they're winning championships, the next they're knocked out in first round. That's just how sport operates and just how the body is. It's not always going to be operating at its best. So RPE kind of allows us to monitor intensity rather than resistance. So if I was to give you an example, if we walked into a gym and there's weights everywhere, but they've got nothing on them, you don't know what they weigh. You pick up, say, a kettlebell, you go, oh, sweet, light. You'd be like, okay, how light is that? Give me a 1 to 10. And you go, oh, a 2. Cool. And then we go pick up something else, and you go pick up something else. Oh, shit, this is super heavy, bloody heavy. What's this? RP of 8. Cool. Your body is now measuring intensity without measuring the load. Like, we don't pick up things. I don't pick up my phone and go 1.25 kilograms. We only know what things weigh because it tells us. Okay. So our body kind of operates off exertion, which is what RPE stands for, rate of perceived exertion. So how much we're exerting ourselves to move that resistance. So within a training realm, let's take Janice again. So Janice might be an athlete, or she might be general pop, and she comes in on a good day. She's eating well, 8 hours sleep, hydrated well, super stress-free, like just loving life, comes in like box of fluffies, sunshines and rainbows. She brings you a coffee. She's on top of the world. I'm like, great, this is going to be a fantastic session. And she does. And she hits PRs, or she trains well, and, she's pushing her in numbers. And you're like, cool. So RP of 8, let's say RP of 8, Janice is doing a back squat. At an RP of 8, she's doing 70 kilos. And you're like, great work, Janice. Great session. She comes in 3 days later. It's raining outside. It's miserable. It's cold. She had a stressful day at work. Some lady at work's had a crack at her. Someone dinged her car because she parked close. So she's mad, and she's not feeling great. She didn't eat well. She got terrible sleep. And okay, cool, Janice, we got back squats again. We got back squats again today. She goes, cool. She knows that she did 70 last time. So she goes, oh, yeah, cool. Puts 50 on. My God, this feels heavy. I'm like, cool. Well, where are we at RPE wise? And she might go, I'm at an RP of 7. And I was like, cool, sweet. There's nothing wrong with that. Where a lot of people will be like, well, but she did 70 the other week or the other day. Well, shouldn't she be doing that again? Not necessarily, because everything that's happened externally has had an impact on her performance in here. So it's about managing that and load management. So if I was to push her at 70 and go, no, you did 70 last time. Come on, we got to at least do that again. That's when injuries can occur, and that's where egos get in the way. It happens a lot with blokes. I'll put my hand up. I'm like, I did 12.5 bicycles this week. I'm doing 15 next week. The body doesn't work like that. And it took me a while. Like, it took me to study and experimenting with things, and actually doing courses and learning that that's not how the body operates and you find that you get a lot better results and you can stay consistent for a long period of time with your training if you're managing your RPE.
Mm.
So yeah, if you're having an off day, don't kick yourself about it. Just it is what it is. And if just move. And if you're training at that intensity still, you're still training at RP of 7. Your body doesn't know that your body doesn't know, your muscles don't know that that's 50 kilos versus 70. It just knows that this feels the same as it did the other day. It feels heavy.
Mm.
That's all it knows. As soon as we get that out of our heads and the body just knows that it's heavy and it's light. That's it. We don't. It's only because we have numbers there that we attach those numbers to that. Attach those numbers to it, and that's where we can get. That's where we get caught up. So, like female athletes, I've used it a lot because they'll get to certain points in their training where they are going into they hit their menstrual cycle, and they go, oh, I've got no energy today. I'm depleted in this. Their micronutrients are going to be down. And it's like, cool. Let's just scale everything back to where you feel that weight is an RP of what we're working for.
Mm.
And they go, and you find that they get a good work. They can still get a good workout in. They can still train well. They don't feel absolutely wrecked. Means that they can come in the next day or the day after and still put in another good training session in. Where in the
Um,
past I've had people do, I've pushed them because that's what I thought, and
mm.
next 2 days they're wrecked.
Don't see them for a week.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
100%. I learned that lesson as well. Rule of thirds.
The rule of thirds.
Yeah.
Um, I use this more with my athletes, but I use it. I've started to integrate into general pop as well. So rule of thirds. If they're training relatively regularly, like 4 or 5 times a week, this is probably very good for the general population. Rule of thirds. Um, third of the time, your training should feel shit. It should feel terrible. It's gonna feel terrible. Okay, if you're hitting these three, and if you hit these three, this is where you should be. Like you're at the right point. If your training feels like shit a third of the time, it feels all right some of the time, but for a third of the time, at a third of the time, it feels great. So
Mm.
if you break that over, say like a month, and you go over a month and you go, cool, a third of that month it was shit, a third of the month it was meh, and a third of the month it was fantastic. That's exactly where you should be in terms of your programming. Like you're at the right point, and you're pushing the right resistances and training at the right intensity. Whereas if it's the other way around, if it's half of it is too easy, and then the other half is just shit, then there's areas that need to be looked at within the programming, or we need to look at your external life, what's causing that imbalance. So
Mm.
yeah, the rule of thirds, and that's what I did it with a lot of athletes because a lot of the time athletes it's here for them, and just been like, training shit, and it's funny because it will be for like a good 2 week block or
Mm.
1 to 2 week block. Their training is trash. They're like missing weights that they did 3-4 months ago that they should be smashing, and it's
Mm.
frustrating for a coach because you're going, why are we going backwards? Um, but yeah, once you understand that, that like kind of links, if we go technical, links to that kind of super compensation, you're going to get like a negative on a graph, you're going to get that negative downward, and if you recover well, you'll get that nice increase, and that reduces over time. It's similar to that, that just a third of the time the training is going to be trash, and you just kind of go, cool, let's not hit resistances, let's not do those weights, let's just focus on technique and timing and form and execution. And it's just being aware and just noticing that. And be like, cool, Janice, what's going on? Why are you missing 40 kilo snatches when your max is 80? Like what's happening?
Mm.
And it's just, yeah, being aware of that and just being like, cool, let's just scale back. Let's just go back to the bar. Let's just do something. Or it might even just be like, do something completely different and just do something fun, or just focus on stabilization, create some fun for them. What do you want to do? Just change it up a little bit, and it might freshen them up. And changing the stimulus. If they know they're coming in, they've got snatches for the day, and it's going to shit, and just be like, cool, scrap it. Just go make up something else, do something else, make it fun, and you might find that kind of shortens that window of that third, and can increase that green area in terms of the performance side of things.
Yeah, I love those two topics, how you cover them, like the rule of thirds and RPE, because like people just are so hard on themselves, and when the training's not going well, it's like, well, this isn't working, just basically give up. So I
Oh,
think like how
absolutely.
you've explained that is just absolutely great.
It's a killer. Like, it's a killer of consistency.
Mm,
Is people just, oh, I'm going backwards. Oh, it's a stop. And then
yeah.
it's like, well, you just undone all the hard work. Why you quit now? Like, you just
Mm,
accomplished all this. Why would you go backwards?
yep.
Why stop? Like, use it as motivation.
Let's leave it on motivation. Uh, well, thanks for coming on. One last thing before we go,
Yeah.
maybe for those that are listening and not watching, can you just explain what's that hanging around your neck?
Oh, this is tonga. So it's a traditional Māori piece that was given to me um, as a gift. It just kind of symbolizes, well, it's a guardian, actually. So the character on there is a taniwha, which is the guardian of the ocean and the water. And I kind of grew up around water, and kind of feel, I suppose, drawn to water more than anything. So and I'm the eldest, so it kind of goes in with guardian of the family kind of
Mm,
thing. It's also is prevalent through my tattoo as well. So yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's just something that I cherish and look after, and yeah, just a bit of who I am.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Well, everybody listening or watching, make sure you head over to Matt's Instagram, give him a follow. Matt is going to plan to come to Melbourne at some point, so when you do, we're definitely going to do some in-person content, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'll be over hopefully in the next couple of months. Yeah, if you want to find my page, my training page is Ethos Training. I think it's Ethos Training NZ.
I'll put it all in the show notes anyway.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, thanks again for coming on.
No worries, mate. Thank you for having me.